This is channel Xianxia Audio. Please support me a subscription. This is the series I'm Not a Theater God. Chapter 161. Hello. This Han Meng is quite interesting. Bai Yi looked at the figure single-handedly blocking the city wall in surprise. Is it possible? Impossible, Chu Muyan interrupted him directly. But he clearly already questioned Aurora City. So why is it impossible? His questioning of Aurora City precisely proves that he won't join us. In the heart of such a person, there is a path he firmly adheres to. I understand him. The path of the Twilight Society is different from his path. So he won't join. Alright, Bai Yi shrugged. Then he can only wait to be brought before the judgment court. What a pity for such a promising talent. As the two spoke, Han Meng had already completely imprisoned the 3 5-striped enforcers. Black chains wrapped around their bodies. And their domains were also suppressed by Han Meng. They looked at the approaching black-clad figure with eyes almost spitting fire. They struggled constantly, and fine cracks began to spread on the black chains. It seemed that it wouldn't be long before they could shatter them and break free. Han Meng naturally saw this scene but did not continue to act. He knew that these 3 were enforcement officers of the same rank as him. Even if he was strong, it would be extremely difficult to completely incapacitate all 3 of them. It was enough to temporarily seal their movements with the cardinal sin judgment. He only needed to delay the train for a few tens of seconds. A maximum of 1 minute. And they would be able to enter the city. Han Meng, on the other hand, needed to conserve his stamina as much as possible. Because he knew that the key to whether that train could enter the city did not lie with these 3 5-striped enforcers. If Aurora City was truly determined to destroy that train, they would continue to send people. If 5-striped enforcers weren't enough, they would send 6-striped, or even 7-striped. Han Meng held his gun and sat down on the inner edge of the city wall. His worn black trench coat swayed in the wind. He looked in the direction of the headquarters. Beneath his calm gaze was a determination that even a blizzard could not destroy. His actions, his gaze, seemed to be directed at everyone in front of the city gate and even inside the headquarters. Today, no matter who wanted to approach this gate, they would first have to step over his corpse. Ellipsis. Aurora City, Enforcer Headquarters. How is the situation in the city? Chu Shiduo rushed back to the headquarters and asked. Not good. An enforcer came forward and replied with a solemn expression. The impact of public opinion is even more severe than we imagined. After that train spoke out, most of the residents on the southwest side joined the queue of condemnation. Currently, more than 1,000 people have gathered near the city gate, demanding that we let the train enter the city. In addition, people from the Aurora Daily are also on the city wall and seem to have gotten into a dispute with our enforcement officers. If we don't let that train into the city, I'm afraid the entire front page of tomorrow's Aurora Daily will be articles scolding us. Even within our enforcers, a large number of people feel that they should be allowed to enter the city. Upon hearing this, Chu Shiduo quickened his pace. He frowned deeply and calmly analyzed. If we really destroy that train outside the city, the negative impact will likely far exceed expectations. If someone is secretly fanning the flames, I'm afraid the entire Aurora City will fall into chaos. No, I must go see teacher now. Chu Shiduo passed through several corridors and arrived at the door of the tea room. After 2 light knocks, he pushed the door open. Teacher, regarding that train. Before Chu Shiduo could finish speaking, Tan Xin glanced at him indifferently. Beside him was a communicator. Teacher, you already know about the situation outside? Chu Shiduo immediately asked. Tan Xin took a sip of tea. What do you think? I think we should let the train enter the city. Chu Shiduo replied seriously. Even if the situation outside the city brought by the people on that train might cause panic within the city. This panic is not uncontrollable. And as long as they are properly supervised, these people may not necessarily become rebels in the future. But if we don't let them enter the city, the consequences will be 100 times more severe. Not bad. Tan Xin nodded slightly. Teacher, do you also think they should be allowed to enter the city? Then why haven't you given the order yet? What's the rush? Tan Xin said unhurriedly. Han Meng has already subdued those enforcement officers on the city gate and controlled that city gate. Whether I give the order or not, the result will be the same. Han Meng? Chu Shiduo was stunned. He subdued those enforcement officers? Wasn't he? That's no longer important. Tan Xin swirled the tea in his cup. his gaze seemingly piercing through nothingness, looking at the train rushing towards the city from outside. That Chen Ling really has some skill. I'm very curious. What kind of act is he trying to pull? Going to such lengths to enter Aurora City? Ellipsis. It's Han Meng Chief. Han Meng Chief has taken action. On the roaring train, many residents saw Han Meng suppressing the 3 enforcement officers, and their faces lit up with surprise. Just a moment ago, they were still trembling under the pressure released by the enforcement officers, almost thinking they were doomed. But Han Meng's sudden appearance gave them a glimmer of hope. Now, as the train got closer and closer to the city gate, everyone's hearts were in their throats. They looked through the train car windows at the magnificent and tall city gate, their palms sweating from nervousness. In the control room, Chen Ling looked at the figure sitting on the back of the city wall, a slight smile on his lips. He knew he had made the right gamble. I owe him another favor, Chen Ling muttered to himself. What did you say? Zhao Yi turned around. Nothing. Speed up. Chen Ling returned to the top of the train's front, looking at the rapidly approaching city gate. The roaring whistle sound came from the chimney behind him, echoing through the sky. Buzz buzz buzz. His blood-colored coat danced wildly in the cold wind. Chen Ling took out his gun and aimed it forward, a flicker of light in his eyes. Whether they could successfully enter the city depended on this final step. 2 kilometers, 1 kilometer, 700 meters, 400 meters, 200 meters. No one else moved to block them. Amidst the clanging of the turning wheels, flames rolled, and the train's front split the air, pushing it wildly to both sides, tearing a grotesque gap in the wind and snow. Everyone, hold on tight, Zhao Yi shouted in the control room, then instinctively closed his eyes as he pushed the withered hand forward. Everyone in the train car immediately grabbed onto anything they could, curling their bodies into a ball. Their hearts pounded wildly, every cell in their bodies waiting for the final impact. Clang 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 clang. The tall and sturdy city gate rapidly expanded in Chen Ling's pupils. His sideburns were blown back by the strong wind. The instant the two were about to collide, Chen Ling pulled the trigger without hesitation. Hello, Aurora City, he murmured. Chapter 162, Entering the City. Open black lens bracket audience anticipation +5 close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket current anticipation, 78% close black lens bracket. This was not the first time audience anticipation had changed, and Chen Ling didn't have time to check each one. He only knew that the current audience anticipation had broken through its historical peak. As Chen Ling pulled the trigger, the power of deconstruction surged forth, instantly tearing a gap in the center of the approaching city gate. The steel locomotive, carrying terrifying kinetic energy like an unstoppable bullet, crashed into the city gate with a roar. Thump. In an instant, the locomotive tore through the deconstructed gap, smashing the entire city gate into smithereens with immense force. Countless fragments, as if propelled by an explosion, splattered into the city, and the snow mixed with dust obscured the city wall. Those blocked outside the cordon felt the ground shake and cried out, looking towards the city gate, holding their breath nervously. The whistle roared in the wailing wind, and a colossal dark steel shadow emerged from the abandoned despairing purgatory. Only then did everyone finally see the appearance of the train. It was a train carrying wind and ice, completely charred, with several of its cargo carriages even twisted and deformed, as if it had endured unimaginable destruction and tempering. It crashed through Aurora City's gate under everyone's gaze, roaring out from the hazy dust. It came from the abyss. It trod on flames. It was unstoppable. Screech. A sharp hum emanated from the train. The brakes were pressed to the bottom, and blinding sparks splattered from the bottom of the wheels, leaving several dark long marks on the wide, long avenue. The ear-splitting braking sound made everyone instinctively cover their ears. At the same time, an bone-chilling gust of wind surged into the city with the train, blowing their clothes and hair. It was a cold that the residents of Aurora City had never experienced, as if from the underworld, making them shiver. Is it that cold outside Aurora City? How come it feels like a completely different temperature from inside the city? I feel chilled to the bone. With such heavy snow outside, how did they endure it? Quote. As everyone whispered, on the city wall of Aurora City, a figure in a black coat finally breathed a slight sigh of relief upon seeing the train enter the city. Han Meng looked at the scarred train, and a hint of guilt and complexity flashed in his eyes. He didn't know how this train had passed through the Grey Realm. But the survivors on board had undoubtedly endured too much suffering. If he hadn't come to Aurora City and had instead stayed in the 3rd District, perhaps more people would have survived. Subtle cracking sounds came from the city wall. The 3 enforcement officers, who had been locked by Cardinal Sin judgment, simultaneously let out a low roar, forcefully breaking free from the chains and regaining their freedom. Only about 40 seconds had passed since they were sealed by Han Meng. But these brief dozens of seconds were undoubtedly a great insult to them. Not only had they failed to complete the orders given by Aurora City, but they had also been suppressed by an outsider junior under the watchful eyes of the public. Their anger had already burned into their eyes. They rushed to Han Meng's side simultaneously, and 3 domains reopened. A terrifying aura, like the gaze of death, locked onto the black-clad figure, ready for a life-and-death battle with him at any moment. However, Han Meng did not resist at all. He stood calmly on the city wall, looking down at the decelerating train, allowing the trio's attacks to approach his body without any intention of striking back. The 3 instantly took control of Han Meng. They held his shoulders, roaring in anger. Traitor Han Meng, disobeying headquarters orders and openly challenging Aurora City. What else do you have to argue? Han Meng didn't even look at them. His gaze followed the train, and he replied indifferently, "I have nothing to say." He no longer needed to resist or fight, because his mission was complete. On Autumn Leaf Avenue, as the train's speed gradually slowed, a large number of enforcers and enforcement officers rushed out from the city, surrounding the roaring steam train tightly. A large number of citizens stood outside the cordon, anxiously and expectantly looking towards the train, seemingly waiting for something. The train came to a complete stop in front of White Dove Square. The steam valve let out a sharp hiss, and as the hazy dust and steam dispersed, the figure on the locomotive gradually became clear in everyone's vision. It was a young man in a blood-colored coat. He held a gun in his left hand, from which a wisp of smoke still slowly drifted. His calm and profound eyes slowly swept across the entire square. Is he the heretic Chen Ling that the enforcement officers mentioned earlier? Seems so. He's so young, looks only about 20? Wait, isn't that an enforcement officer's coat he's wearing? It really is, but it seems to be covered in blood. So it's turned red. How many people did he kill? Quote. As they observed Chen Ling was also observing this city, which was completely unfamiliar to him. Parks, streetlights, kites, city towers. Compared to here, the 7 districts truly seemed as backward as basic residential areas around factory complexes. Besides the simplest survival, there was nothing else. This place felt more like a city where one could live, and it was also closer to the city of the previous era in Chen Ling's memory. No wonder everyone wants to enter Aurora City. Chen Ling chuckled softly. Rustling sounds came from beneath his feet. One by one, disheveled figures peered out from the train car doors, cautiously observing everything around them. Most of their faces bore frostbite or burns, and their clothes were tattered, looking completely like refugees. Aurora City. We really entered Aurora City. Dad, it's so beautiful here. There are so many colorful birds in the sky. We're saved. My child is saved. Is this Aurora City? Quote. Injured with broken legs, mothers holding dying children, men with burns all over their bodies, girls too hungry to even stand steadily. They disembarked one after another under everyone's gaze. In their eyes, besides surprise, there was more confusion and helplessness. They were like savages emerging from deep mountains, entering a city for the first time. Everything around them was so unfamiliar. Those people wore luxurious clothes they had never seen. Their faces were clean, and their hands had no scars or calluses. In the distance, there were endless small buildings and streets. Meanwhile, behind the cordon, the residents of Aurora City were also whispering as they watched them. For most of them, this was also their first contact with the world outside the city walls. Residents inside and outside the city, separated by the human wall of enforcers and the cordon, observed each other. The disparity between the two worlds was vividly displayed at this moment. Just then, crisp cocking sounds broke the delicate silence. Countless muzzles were raised from among the enforcers, aiming at the blood-colored figure on the train, as if facing a formidable enemy. Chapter 163, At the Eye of the Storm. Everyone unrelated, retreat immediately. An enforcer stared at Chen Ling with extreme vigilance, then turned to warn the crowd. This man is a heinous criminal. He is a heretic who infiltrated the law enforcement system. Be careful, he might lash out and harm people. Upon hearing this, the faces of the Aurora City residents immediately changed. They quickly retreated, their eyes filled with fear and terror as they looked at Chen Ling. Watching the receding crowd, Chen Ling's expression remained as calm as water. His gaze swept over everyone, and the corners of his mouth curved slightly upward. Over 1,000 people. This is an unexpected pleasant surprise. Before entering the city, Chen Ling had worried that the enforcers and enforcement officers behind the city walls might not be enough to gather an audience of 100 people. Now it seemed his worries were completely unfounded. The combined number of civilians and enforcers surrounding him was at least 1,000. Seeing that Chen Ling not only didn't refute but instead smiled, an indescribable sense of eeriness immediately arose in everyone's hearts. It was like a serial killer, whose identity had been exposed in public, smiling at the crowd, which was chilling to the bone. Chief, is there some misunderstanding? Beside the train, the 3rd District residents whom Chen Ling had brought into Aurora City were filled with confusion. How could Chief Chen be a criminal? He saved our lives. That's right, without Chief Chen, we would have frozen to death on the ice plain long ago. Chief Chen is the best enforcement officer I've ever seen, and the only enforcement officer who didn't abandon us. How could he be a heretic? Impossible. Chief Chen can't be a bad person. You must be mistaken. Yes, Brother Chen Ling isn't a bad person. Quote ellipsis ellipsis quote. The voices of the 3rd District residents grew louder. They frowned at the enforcers before them, refuting them one after another, their tones filled with unprecedented conviction. Foolish. The enforcer, seeing this, shouted again in anger. You've all been deceived by him. And you're still defending him? He saved you only to use you to coerce Aurora City into opening its gates. From beginning to end, you were just his hostages. Do you understand? This person killed all his companions in the Bingdao ancient treasury and stole the Dao Foundation fragments. He is a heretic disguised as an enforcement officer. You actually still believe him? The people of the 3rd District were stunned. But the next moment, Xu Chongguo angrily spoke. I don't care about heretic or not. Even if he used us. He truly brought us into Aurora City. We are alive because of him. He is more like an enforcement officer than you enforcement officers who abandoned the 7 districts. Exactly. When the disaster came, those enforcers all ran away and even killed my father. Now Chief Chen saved me and brought us alive into Aurora City. How can he be a heretic? When Chief Chen was fighting the disaster for us, where were the real enforcement officers? What right do you hypocrites hiding behind the wall have to speak of him? Chief Chen is not a heretic. Chief Chen is not a heretic. Quote ellipsis ellipsis quote. Xu Chongguo's words awakened the crowd. They were originally the group abandoned by Aurora City, and now their anger was completely ignited by this inexplicable slander. The anger and hatred suppressed in their hearts all poured out, with Chen Ling as the catalyst. At this moment, the onlookers from Aurora City were somewhat bewildered. They stared blankly at the blood-clothes figure standing calmly on the train car, unsure whose words were correct. They couldn't define Chen Ling, nor could they label him as good or bad in their hearts. That figure was like an unknown mystery. In the crowd, Wen Shilin also looked at Chen Ling thoughtfully. His pen was writing rapidly, clearly recording every word spoken by both sides. The flashes of the spotlight burst, and his assistant had already permanently etched Chen Ling's image onto the film. This is impossible. Han Meng, bound by shackles, immediately shook his head upon seeing this. Chen Ling would not be a heretic. Han Meng, you were the law enforcement officer chief of the 3rd District, and a heretic lived right under your nose. Did you truly not notice anything? A 5-striped enforcer sneered. He is the culprit who caused the annihilation in the Bingdao ancient treasury. If we hadn't captured a survivor from the ancient treasury and performed a soul fragmentation search evidence, he almost would have gotten away with it. Upon hearing this, Han Meng's body trembled slightly. Also, we found evidence from Shi Renji's soul. This Chen Ling has strange abilities. He can not only change his face but also use illusions to create tricks and feed on disasters. If he's like this, is he still not considered a heretic? What did you say? Han Meng abruptly looked up. The mysterious red opera robe figure that appeared when he was severely injured in the Grey Realm flashed through his mind. Before this, Chen Ling had also mentioned the Twilight Society to him. Clues connected in Han Meng's mind, seemingly all corroborating his identity. Han Meng stared blankly at the familiar figure on the train car, gradually overlapping with the red opera robe in his memory. The dispute between the 3rd District and the enforcers continued, while Chen Ling, the original host, quietly listened, as if everything they were arguing about had nothing to do with him. As the other 2 5-striped enforcers approached, the enforcers surrounding the train parted, creating a path. The 2 of them stood in front of the train, looking at Chen Ling with cold eyes, and slowly spoke. "Heretic Chen Ling, we were wondering how to capture you from outside the city, but we didn't expect you to deliver yourself. Since that's the case, come with us." "Go?" Chen Ling slowly spoke. "Where?" The 5-striped enforcer looked at him, answering word by word. "Soul fragmentation search evidence." "Chen Ling, we know you have many tricks. But now that you're in Aurora City, no matter how great your abilities are, you won't escape. Whatever your purpose was in infiltrating the law enforcement system, once we perform a soul fragmentation search evidence, everything about you and the forces behind you will be completely exposed. Chen Ling, we understand that you desperately wanted to escape into Aurora City to survive during the Grey Realm convergence. As long as you undergo the soul fragmentation search evidence, there is still a possibility for you to live. Surrender. The fact that you could enter the Bingdao Ancient Treasury indicates you are at most not above the 3rd rank. Any struggle from you will be useless." The 2 enforcement officers spoke consecutively, their 5th rank pressure sweeping out directly. In just a few words, they had sealed all of Chen Ling's escape routes. In their eyes, Chen Ling had already become a trapped beast. Chapter 164, Exiting the Stage. "No, you can't arrest Chief Chen. Chief Chen is a good man. By what right do you judge him? Where is Han Meng Chief? If Han Meng Chief were here, he definitely wouldn't let you take Chief Chen away. Chief Chen is one of us from the 3rd District." "Exactly, you can't take him away." Hearing that they were going to arrest Chen Ling, the people of the 3rd District immediately became enraged. They proactively guarded the train, and hot-headed individuals like Zhao Yi directly swung their fists and charged at the enforcers. The enforcers of Aurora City changed their expressions, immediately aiming their guns at these survivors. And the next moment, curses erupted from beside them. "Are you insane? Killing them now will cause a huge incident. Put your guns away. Drag all these refugees away." The enforcement officer, after all, could see the situation clearly. There was no order to kill these people right now, and acting rashly would only invite trouble. The surrounding enforcers immediately rushed forward, embracing the agitated 3rd District citizens and slowly dragging them aside. The 2 sides tore at each other, and the scene instantly became chaotic. Noisy shouts intertwined, some accusing Chen Ling, others supporting Chen Ling, and a dispute without justice or wrong unfolded with great fanfare. Just as the dispute between the 2 sides was about to reach a fever pitch, a calm voice sounded. "This farce should end. Open black lens bracket audience expectation +5 close black lens bracket." The moment this voice sounded, everyone stopped their clamor and fighting. They looked up at the train, where the blood-clothed figure's expression remained calm. "Chen Ling, are you going to surrender?" the 5-striped enforcer asked coldly upon seeing this. "Surrender?" Chen Ling scoffed. "By yourselves? You?" The disdain in Chen Ling's words completely enraged the enforcement officer. He glared fiercely at Chen Ling, his gaze seemingly capable of killing. "You're just a heretic who snuck into Aurora City by relying on hostages. Without Aurora City, you would have died in the Grey Realm convergence long ago." The enforcement officer's voice was utterly chilling. "You want to live by relying on Aurora City, yet you're so reckless? Who said my purpose in entering Aurora City was to live? Then why did you enter the city?" "My purpose in entering the city is twofold." Chen Ling raised a finger, pointing at the disheveled 3rd District crowd below, and answered unhurriedly. "First, I can't stand Aurora City's hypocritical justice. I don't want to comment on whether your abandonment of the 7 districts was correct. But your management of the lower-level enforcers and enforcement officers disgusts me to no end. Since the enforcers you label as righteous are slaughtering civilians, I insisted on bringing these survivors into Aurora City. I want Aurora City to hear what kind of demons are running rampant under the guise of justice." As soon as this sentence was uttered, the survivors from the 3rd District seemed to recall something, and flames of anger began to flicker in their eyes. And while some residents of Aurora City also showed slight changes in expression, not everyone could resonate with it. The five-striped enforcer's expression was somewhat grim. In his opinion, Chen Ling and those heretics secretly instigating protests were undoubtedly trying to confuse the minds of the common people with nonsense. He couldn't let him continue speaking. At this moment, the enforcers below the train had successively led away the surrounding 3rd District residents, and the entire area had been largely cleared. The two five-striped enforcers exchanged glances, and after a brief eye contact, one of them quietly disappeared, approaching Chen Ling on the train. Utter nonsense. The five-striped enforcer narrowed his eyes, trying to attract Chen Ling's attention. When did it become a heretic's turn to judge the merits of the enforcement system? Chen Ling completely ignored him. The faint glow of secret eye flashed in his pupils, and he cast a light glance beside him. Then, as if completely unaware, he calmly continued to speak. Second, I came to deliver a warning. Warning? Chen Ling paused for a moment, his voice clearly echoing in everyone's ears. The cold wind of the frozen sea has already reached Aurora City, and the demise of the 7 districts is not the end of the story, perhaps. It's just the beginning. Everyone was stunned, seemingly not understanding Chen Ling's meaning. But the expressions of several enforcement officers drastically changed, their eyes filled with fear and anger. You're looking for death, the five-striped enforcer roared. Aurora City is impregnable. How can an outsider like you desecrate it? What are you waiting for? Quickly take down this heretic. Before he finished speaking, all the enforcers below once again raised their guns at Chen Ling. At the same time, from the void next to the train, a figure, carrying terrifying pressure, suddenly struck. This five-striped enforcer had already gotten close to Chen Ling. At this distance, he was confident he could take down Chen Ling in one blow, leaving him with no escape. However, just as his palm was about to touch Chen Ling, the latter's lips curved into an arc, and in his sideways glance, there was a faint hint of playfulness and mockery. Chen Ling forcefully crushed several spell eels hidden in his sleeve. Boom! As the spell eels were crushed into fragments, raging flames instantly erupted from Chen Ling's palm. From a distance, it looked as if a scorching sun had exploded on top of the train. The extreme heat distorted and twisted the surrounding light, and the five-striped enforcer's palm was directly scorched black. He was greatly alarmed, recoiling sharply, his gaze at Chen Ling filled with shock. No one saw where the flames came from. It was as if Chen Ling merely raised his hand, and a blazing sun with a radius of several meters spontaneously ignited in plain sight. The blood-clothed figure stood calmly in the raging fire, like a brilliant deity at the center of light and heat. Everyone present was stunned. The five-striped enforcer never imagined that Chen Ling would actually ignite himself. Is he crazy? He finally made it into Aurora City, only to self-immolate in the end? Heretic Chen Ling. Heretic Chen Ling? A heretic painstakingly brings survivors from the 7 districts into the city, then self-immolates just like that? What was his purpose? That doesn't make sense then. It brings him no benefit whatsoever. Or is it that he really just wanted to save people? He sacrificed his life to save that group of 3rd District survivors, willingly walking into the trap? How could such a person be called a heretic? I believe those survivors now. This Chen Ling is absolutely not a heretic. If a person like him can be called a heretic, then what about the enforcement officers who abandoned the 7 districts? He shouldn't have died. Aurora City forced him to his death. He was just a hero who saved the abandoned. Quote. Everyone stared blankly at the figure standing in the raging flames, their minds reeling. Amidst the continuous shouts around them, the accusations made by the enforcement officers against Chen Ling completely fell apart after Chen Ling ignited himself. The heretic in the enforcement officer's eyes. The criminal disguised and infiltrated into the enforcement system. The despicable person who used hostages to coerce his way into Aurora City just to survive, under those raging flames. All the labels and doubts placed upon Chen Ling were burned away. Sometimes, actual actions are more convincing than pale words. This fire overturned the voices of the enforcement officers, pushing the direction of the farce towards an outcome absolutely favorable to Chen Ling. At this moment, only one label remained on Chen Ling. That was the savior who, at the cost of his own sacrifice, dared to question Aurora City and save the abandoned refugees. In the burning flames, Chen Ling's body gradually turned to ash. He smiled as he looked at the audience below the stage. gently placing one hand on his chest, and elegantly bowing slightly, like an actor about to take his final curtain call. Those ashes whirled and roared, rushing towards the sky, transforming into countless playing cards before everyone's eyes, falling like snowflakes, amidst the crowded masses. On the distant streets, within the burning flames, those were thousands upon thousands of red heart sixes. Just as everyone was shocked by this scene, a calm and slow voice sounded from the embers of the flames. Human civilization, never extinguished. Chapter 165, Has he vanished? Everyone seemed to have forgotten to breathe. The bone-chilling wind from outside the city gate extinguished the raging fire on the train's front, and the figure in the blood-red coat was already reduced to ashes. Under such high temperatures, nothing but ash would remain of a person. Chen Ling, Zhao Yi, being dragged away by the enforcers. His eyes turned red. He didn't know where he got the strength, but he angrily pushed away the enforcers in front of him and stumbled towards the train. He reached out his hands towards the dancing embers, but could only grasp at nothingness. He stood there blankly, his back exuding endless confusion and desolation. Chief Chen, let me go, let me go. More and more 3rd District residents rushed out of the crowd and ran to the train. When they saw the charred mark on the train roof, their bodies couldn't help but tremble. Xu Chongguo turned around and roared at the silent enforcement officers. Chief Chen clearly could have escaped alone, yet he still turned back and led us into Aurora City. I don't understand what you mean by heretics. But he never hurt any of us from beginning to end. Now he's been forced to his death by you. Are you satisfied? Is this the justice you wanted? Give us back Chief Chen. Quote. Damn you, I'll fight you, Zhao Yi growled, rolling up his sleeves and charging at the 5-striped enforcer. His eyes were bloodshot, like an enraged lion. Zhao Yi's father had died, and it was Chen Ling who fulfilled his promise to his father, escorting Zhao Yi all the way into Aurora City. No matter how much Zhao Yi loved to bicker with Chen Ling, he was grateful to Chen Ling from the bottom of his heart. And now, Aurora City had forced Chen Ling to his death right before their eyes, which undoubtedly caused him to completely break down. Zhao Yi didn't care about enforcement officers or anything else. He threw a punch directly at the other's face. The latter's expression was extremely grim. He had intended to strike Zhao Yi away, but after a moment of hesitation, he dodged aside and pushed Zhao Yi back to dozens of enforcers nearby. Arrest them all, protect them. Send them to the hospital for treatment. At the enforcement officer's command, the other enforcers swarmed forward, using their immense numerical advantage to subdue the rioting 3rd District residents and heading towards the headquarters. But even so, they couldn't silence these people. Curses and accusations echoed through the streets, moving the surrounding Aurora City residents. Ever since Chen Ling's death, the gazes of Aurora City residents had changed somewhat. Their eyes towards the enforcement officers were filled with doubt and anger. The flashes of magnesium light flickered continuously, and every single event was clearly recorded in photographs. Officer, what do we do next? An enforcer approached the 5-striped enforcer and asked cautiously. The enforcement officer also noticed the change in atmosphere among the populace, and his brows furrowed unconsciously. He immediately spoke. The heretic has been eliminated. Let's pull back first. What about that train? Have someone tow it to the warehouse and temporarily seal it as evidence. Yes. Under the enforcement officer's command, the surrounding cordon was quickly removed, and the enforcers also left one after another, leaving many citizens to argue amongst themselves. On the city wall, Han Meng, chained by shackles, stared blankly at the charred area on the train's front, motionless like a statue. You saw it. He was a member of the Twilight Society. Now, do you have anything else to say? The 5-striped enforcer left to escort Han Meng slowly spoke. Chen Ling, Han Meng murmured to himself. Then he came back to his senses and shook his head. No, the 3rd District residents were right. He shouldn't have died. Han Meng, are you out of your mind? The Twilight Society is on the highest capture list in all realms. You still want to shield him? What if it's the Twilight Society? He didn't do anything wrong. Han Meng's brows furrowed tightly. Besides, now, I'm also considered a heretic. What right do I have to judge the Twilight Society? The enforcement officer's eyes widened. He stared at Han Meng for a long time, then sneered. Good, very good, Han Meng, when you get to the trial court, you'd better be able to repeat that sentence. Hee hee. After speaking, he escorted Han Meng directly towards the headquarters. At the same time, on top of a small building not far away, Bai Yi and Chu Muyan watched the train being slowly towed away, both falling silent. After an unknown amount of time, Chu Muyan thoughtfully pushed up his glasses, then began to look around, as if searching for something. "What are you looking for?" Bai Yi couldn't help but ask. "Where did you hide him?" "Who?" "Chen Ling, of course." Chu Muyan spoke as if it were obvious. "You must have stolen his position before he was burned to death. Right? Where is he? The fire was very hot. If he doesn't get timely treatment, he'll be left with lasting health issues." Quote. "What do you mean by not speaking?" Bai Yi's mouth twitched slightly. "You saved him, right?" Chu Muyan asked tentatively. "Do you have some misunderstanding about the thief god path?" Bai Yi rubbed his temples. "The thief god path isn't limitless. I can steal positions, but he was too far from me. And the fire spread too fast. I didn't have time to steal even if I wanted to." "So, you didn't save him?" Senior Bai Yi. Chu Muyan looked at him seriously. "You know if Chen Ling really died, Red King will punish you, right? Don't rush yet. If that kid really died, Aurora City would probably already be split into 8 pieces. Didn't you say that?" Bai Yi immediately spoke. "But now you and I are both standing here perfectly fine. What does that indicate?" Chu Muyan came back to his senses, rubbing his chin with one hand. "You mean, he faked his death to escape? But how did he do it?" "I don't know. Even I can't discern that kid's methods." Chu Muyan's brows furrowed even tighter. He watched the train being slowly towed away in the distance, constantly replaying everything that had just happened in his mind. Chen Ling, a disaster that can spontaneously combust, body consumed by fire, vanished into thin air, steam train. Chu Muyan froze. "You've got a conclusion?" Bai Yi asked in surprise. "I'm not sure." Chu Muyan pushed up his glasses. "However, if Chen Ling really faked his death to escape, then the most likely place he could only be there." Chapter 166 Behind the Scenes. A train that can drive onto the main road, that's insane. A massive steam locomotive, pulling its engine, slowly moved through the roads on the outskirts of Aurora City. The driver, while operating the machine, couldn't help but complain. "Don't complain," his companion said. "If those enforcers hear you, they might deduct half your transport fee. Get the stuff to its destination and let's go home." In front of White Dove Square, the train from outside the city was dismantled into several sections, with carriages completely separated, and transported to a large warehouse by several steam locomotives. The transporters worked from noon until twilight. As the sun gradually set in the west, the train sections finally reached their destination. Looking at the charred train sections sealed inside the warehouse, everyone breathed a slight sigh of relief. "Wait, let's do one last check." The accompanying enforcer suddenly spoke. The porters' faces fell, but they couldn't say much, so they stood obediently at the warehouse entrance, waiting. Several enforcers, carrying kerosene lamps, searched through each carriage. Only after confirming there were no more people did they nod to everyone. "All right." As the cordon was set up around the warehouse, the enforcers finally left. Several lines of birds flew across the dim sky, and the entire warehouse area fell into a dead silence. A few minutes later, a figure slowly descended the steps from the dim carriage. He patted the dust off his body, like a passenger who had just disembarked. He casually pulled aside the cordon and walked out at a leisurely pace. He wore a brown overcoat and a pair of half-rimmed glasses on his nose. A black spectacle chain hung from the temple, making him look like a scholar from afar. His young and unfamiliar face scanned his surroundings as he walked towards the setting sun. However, after only a few steps, he stopped. The orange-red sunset, like a blazing flame, floated at the end of the horizon. On the straight and long road, 2 figures were looking towards him in the afterglow of the setting sun. One of them wore a white baseball cap, with a silver snake pendant hanging from his earlobe, and his slightly upturned smile was mysterious and frivolous. The other wore a gray overcoat, with a scarf wrapped around his neck, and his sky-blue eyes seemed capable of captivating souls. The moment he saw these two, the passenger who had just stepped out of the carriage had a subtle expression. He sighed. "How did you find me?" "Guesswork." Chu Muyan shrugged. "Ever since the train entered Aurora City, you've been standing on top of the engine, never moving. At first, I thought you just wanted to stand a bit higher. But after thinking it over carefully, I realized it wasn't that simple. Your position was directly above the train's steam-spewing chimney. When you incinerated your body, your ashes or embers would fall into the boiler through the chimney. At the same time, you only needed to create an illusion of playing cards flying into the sky, drawing everyone's attention to the sky. This would give you the chance to hide in the engine through the chimney, completing a perfect escape trick. Chu Muyan paused for a moment and continued. Honestly, you did it too perfectly. If I didn't know your background, I would have certainly thought you were burned to nothing but ash. But I still can't figure out how you survived that fire. Chen Ling smiled and did not elaborate. Chu Muyan's deduction was mostly correct. The only flaw was that Chen Ling didn't survive at all. He was genuinely burned to ashes and then reborn in the neglected boiler. After his rebirth, he immediately used open black lens bracket formless close black lens bracket to conceal his figure. So even if the enforcers searched again, they wouldn't find any clues. The inspiration for this performance came from escape magic tricks that occasionally appeared in theaters in his previous life. Although Chen Ling wasn't a professional magician, after watching backstage for a long time, he knew that it was essentially just that. It proved that his escape performance was perfect. Even the five-striped enforcer, who was very close, didn't notice anything unusual, with the exception of Chu Muyan, who first assumed he hadn't died and then deduced the process backwards. After all, who would have thought that he could be reborn even if he turned into ash? Honestly, I really liked your final playing card performance. Bai Yi couldn't help but exclaim. Playing cards falling from the sky is indeed very suitable for our Twilight Society. Next time we have a chance to make a grand appearance, we must try it. Chen Ling walked with the two towards the city streets, asking. After I left, how was the situation? The survivors you brought into Aurora City wanted to stand up for you. And then they were taken away by the enforcers. They should all be receiving treatment now. The other citizens were probably startled by you and haven't recovered yet. But once public opinion ferments, it's hard to say how things will develop. What about Han Meng? Him? He was taken away, disobeying headquarters orders, fighting with other enforcement officers, and publicly questioning Aurora City. His crimes are a sure bet for the Court of Judgment. Court of Judgment? What's that? It's a special court for enforcers. All enforcers who betray or commit crimes are tried there. At best, they are stripped of all rights and imprisoned forever. At worst, they are publicly executed. In any case, it's not a good place. Chen Ling frowned slightly. He walked forward silently, lost in thought. The sun gradually set in the west. The dim sunset light spilled onto the streets of Aurora City. Several children ran past with paper kites, their faces smiling. A crisp bell rang, and a postman on a bicycle reluctantly stopped to yield. The scent of life, along with the rich aroma of food, drifted into every corner of the city. This was Chen Ling's first time walking on the streets of Aurora City. In a trance, he felt as if he had returned to a small town in his previous life. Although the technology was far less advanced than back then, the vibrancy and liveliness were something the 7 districts could not possess. Just then, Chen Ling's peripheral vision caught something on the other side of the street. And he was slightly stunned. A shabbily dressed figure was leaning against the wall in a forgotten corner. Traces of wind and snow still clung to him, and he seemed out of place with everything around him. Chen Ling stopped. What is it? Chu Muyan asked. Seeing this, do you know him? A complex expression flashed in Chen Ling's eyes. After a moment of hesitation, he still walked towards the person. Chen Ling's shadow blocked the lingering sunset. The figure sitting in the corner slowly raised his head, his disheveled face filled with emptiness and confusion. Chen Ling would not forget this face, because not long ago, he had fought against him in the wind and snow. He was the 3rd district enforcer, Shi Renji. Chapter 167, The Aurora Chaser. Hello, Chen Ling said in an unfamiliar tone. Have we met somewhere before? Chen Ling had completely changed his appearance, so there was no reason for him to reveal his identity to Shi Renji. In his helplessness, he could only choose such an old yet effective excuse. Shi Renji stared blankly at that face. After a moment, he suddenly burst into laughter, revealing 2 rows of neat, snow-white teeth on his face, which was covered in wind and mud. I've seen you. We looked for Aurora City together. Chen Ling was startled. He looked at Shi Renji's exaggerated smile and suddenly felt that something was off. But he still followed up. When? Are you doing well? Did you find Aurora City? Shi Renji asked in return. This is Aurora City. Oh. Shi Renji thought for a while, then knelt down and carefully observed the ground. He meticulously examined every crack in the floor tiles, the weeds growing by the walls, and the puddles with floating hair and dirt. He seemed to be searching for something. What are you looking for? Chen Ling asked. I'm looking for Aurora City. I'm about to find it. This is Aurora City, Chen Ling repeated. He looked at Shi Renji's strange behavior, and a thought suddenly rushed into his mind. I'm almost there. I can definitely find it. Shi Renji, clutching a bulging cloth bag, stumbled to his feet and walked onto the street. His eyes, shimmering with hope, scanned his surroundings, a longing Chen Ling had never seen before. Shi Renji's pupils reflected the dim sunset and the few kites still fluttering in the twilight. His hands constantly grabbed at the air, as if trying to catch those kites. Aurora City has kites. I have kites too. Following the kites, I can definitely go to Aurora City. I'm almost there to Aurora City. I'm almost there. He reached into the cloth bag in his arms, pulled out a handful of gleaming gold coins, and threw them forcefully into the sky. The gold coins tumbled in midair, like golden paper kites fluttering across the sky, soaring straight into the clouds under the sunset, only to fall powerlessly to the ground. The clinking sounds echoed on the street, and passers-by stopped in their tracks. Shi Renji's face was filled with excitement and madness. He pulled out handful after handful of gold coins, scattering them into the sky like an idiotic madman. Look, these are the kites they gave me. Following the kites, I can definitely reach Aurora City. The eyes of the people on the street widened. They dropped everything they were doing and swarmed towards him, scrambling behind Shi Renji, fighting over the gold coins scattered on the ground. Their faces were filled with ecstasy. Gold coins? So many gold coins. Is this person crazy? He doesn't want his gold coins? We hit the jackpot. We hit the jackpot. So much money. Enough for our family to live for a long time. Don't snatch. These are all mine. All mine. Quote. Shi Renji emptied his last handful of gold coins and threw them vigorously into the sky. A brilliant golden rain fell from above, and his loud laughter echoed through the street. Countless Aurora City residents behind him bent down to pick up the money, their eyes curving into crescent moons from smiling. No one cared where the crazy person throwing money came from. Even children were crawling on the ground, picking up coins one by one, knowing that even picking up a single one would be enough to buy 10 or 100 new kites. Chen Ling stared blankly at this scene, but did not step forward. His eyes were filled with complexity. This person is really interesting, Bai Yi said, raising an eyebrow. He's clearly in Aurora City, yet he's still looking for Aurora City? Chen Ling shook his head. No, he never reached Aurora City. That tattered figure staggered out from among the bent-over masses. His silhouette, along with the sun setting in the west, gradually disappeared at the end of the street. Chen Ling knew that from now on, there would be no more enforcement officer Shi Renji in the world, and in Aurora City. There would be one more madman desperately searching for Aurora City. Let's go. On the noisy and chaotic street, Chen Ling withdrew his gaze. He pushed up the half-rimmed glasses on his nose and calmly walked towards the east of the road, a direction completely opposite to Shi Renji's. Ever since he let Shi Renji leave outside the city, the other party's fate had nothing to do with him. Even witnessing Shi Renji's end did not affect him, because that would not be Chen Ling's end. The kites of Aurora City would always endure the cold winter, and the sun that set in the west would eventually rise from the east. Ellipsis. Enforcer Headquarters. Bright lights pierced through the night, and a steam car drove through the dim street, slowly stopping at the entrance of the headquarters. Chu Shiduo, who had been waiting at the entrance for a long time, immediately stepped forward and opened the back car door. Tan Xin got out of the car, his black overcoat swaying lightly in the night, and walked directly into the headquarters. Teacher, why are you back so soon this time? Chu Shiduo immediately followed. How is Aurora Lord's condition? Is he feeling better? Tan Xin did not answer, but calmly walked towards his office. All enforcers and enforcement officers who saw him along the way stopped and saluted. But he seemed not to notice them. Black leather gloves pushed open the office door. Tan Xin casually hung his overcoat on the hanger in the corner. Chu Shiduo keenly sensed that his teacher seemed to be in a bad mood. So he stood quietly in front of the desk. waiting for him to speak first. Finally, after Tan Xin turned on the desk lamp, he slowly spoke. How did things go at the southwest gate? It has been quelled. Chu Shiduo seemed to have anticipated his question and handed him a document from his side. That Chen Ling was a member of the Twilight Society. Red Heart 6. After he sent everyone into the city, he self-immolated on the train car. Everyone witnessed him turn to ashes. So his death can be confirmed. However, after Chen Ling's self-immolation, public opinion has begun to shift towards him. Many residents believe that Chen Ling cannot be considered a heretic. And with the promotion of some interested parties, the image of us enforcers is also being constantly smeared. Tan Xin waved his hand. I said, it doesn't matter how the public views us, especially now. Chu Shiduo opened his mouth as if to retort, but ultimately did not speak. However, did this Chen Ling go to such lengths to enter Aurora City just to self-immolate? Chu Shiduo hesitated for a moment, then spoke. He also said something before self-immolating. One was contempt for the enforcer's lower management, and the other was a warning. What warning? He said, the cold wind of the frozen sea has already reached Aurora City, and the downfall of the 7 districts is not the end of the story, perhaps. It's just the beginning. Chu Shiduo repeated Chen Ling's words verbatim. Upon hearing this, Tan Xin's eyes narrowed slightly. He remained silent on the desk for a long time, then chuckled softly. As expected of someone from the Twilight Society, this Chen Ling is not simple. As he spoke, he casually picked up a long, narrow black box, as he gently turned the knob on the edge of the box. Glowing 8s lit up one by one from within, like some kind of digital clock. Under Tan Xin's adjustment, the numbers in the box changed consecutively, finally settling on a string of digits, and then began to tick automatically. 93 days, 3 hours, 36 seconds. Teacher, what does this mean? Chu Shiduo asked, puzzled. Tan Xin placed the box back on the desk. The flickering digital glow illuminated his face with shifting light and shadow. After a moment, he slowly spoke. This is the remaining lifespan of Aurora City. Chapter 168, Survival. Or Death? Dad? In the dungeon, Jian Chongqing slowly opened his eyes. Dim, hazy moonlight streamed through the steel window above, like a patch of white snow spread across the damp ground. His gray, hollow eyes stared at the concrete ceiling for a long time before slowly regaining reason and thought. It was like a computer that had been shut down for too long, slowly and erratically rebooting amidst the buzzing of worn-out parts. He remembered now, this was the hidden underground of the Constellation Commerce Association, a strictly guarded forbidden zone, a sturdy prison built of steel and concrete. And he was a prisoner of the Constellation Commerce Association. Constellation Commerce Association? Yan family. Jian Chongqing lay on the ground like a corpse, his chest heaving violently, an endless rage surging from his heart, wishing to burn down the entire cell. Ever since he left the Bingdao ancient treasury, his memories had been fragmented. First, he was desperately paddling on the frozen sea. Then he fell unconscious. When he woke up, he was already on the Constellation Commerce Association's torture table, preparing for a soul fragmentation search evidence. After that, it was one agonizing torture after another, enough to tear his soul apart. It was a pain Jian Chongqing had never experienced. He countless times felt he was about to lose himself in the agony of his soul. Yet a mysterious force always pulled him back. His will was reshaped through successive fragmentations of his soul, over and over again. Jian Chongqing even felt that compared to the pain he had endured, the oil cauldrons or slow slicing tortures in hell were child's play. He angrily clenched his fists, then helplessly loosened them. He stared blankly at the hazy moonlight spilling from above, and even the thought of suicide to end it all arose in his mind. No, he couldn't die yet. He had only just managed to reclaim the talent that rightfully belonged to him. Only just managed to snatch back his life. Not only had he failed to start his counterattack, he hadn't even been able to go home and see his father. How could he just die here? But what could he do if he lived? The Constellation Commerce Association already knew he had killed Yan Shikai and would never let him leave alive. Perhaps what awaited him would be endless torment until his soul was shattered and dispersed, leading to the most tragic death. Just as Jian Chongqing was struggling bitterly, the moonlight streaming from the dungeon ceiling flickered slightly, amidst the shifting light and shadow. It was as if a mysterious hand was gently manipulating the thread like moonlight. Jian Chongsheng froze. He turned his head with difficulty, following the moonlight to that patch of white ground. Tiny dust particles floated in the moonlight, and a clown figure shrouded in shadow appeared on the ground. His joints were connected to nothingness by threads, like a manipulated puppet. His face was distorted and angry, his hands tightly gripping some of the threads, as if he wanted to snap them all. In the upper left corner of the pattern, a vertical line of letters formed a pattern. Ancient and mysterious, open black lens bracket joker close black lens bracket. This was a playing card. A gray king. This is. Jian Chongsheng's pupils slightly contracted when he saw the playing card. He was once an enforcer of Aurora City. Even with his low status, he had heard of an organization that used playing cards as their code names. The existence of that organization was a taboo. Their danger and madness threatened all realms. The moonlight shifted, and the projection of the playing card was gently flipped. On the patterns of the card's back, a line of small text slowly appeared. Survival, or death? Seeing this line of characters, Jian Chongsheng's mind trembled. He finally realized what he was facing. That taboo organization was watching him? Why? Although he was only being watched and not offered a chance to join. There couldn't be many people they would watch. Jian Chongsheng had long heard that the Twilight Society had few members and did not easily recruit new ones. An open black lens bracket Asura close black lens bracket path would naturally not be the reason for him to be watched. While people of this path were rare, there were still a few in Aurora City, let alone him, a newcomer who had just embarked on the divine path. So why would they notice him? Imprisoned in a dungeon? Was it because his will endured 4 rounds of soul fragmentation search evidence? Or was it something else about him? Jian Chongsheng didn't understand, but he didn't need to, because the answer before him was obvious. Survival or death? How could he choose the latter? He barely hesitated, his voice hoarse but firm. I want to live. The moment these 3 words were spoken, the poker projection on the ground faded and dissipated. There was no reply, no strange phenomenon, nothing happened at all, as if everything just now had been Jian Chongsheng's hallucination. In the dead silence of the darkness, Jian Chongsheng sat quietly in the center of the dungeon, gazing at that patch of moonlight, a symbol of salvation, unmoving like a statue. Ellipsis. Creak. The door of the house slowly opened, and Chen Ling followed Chu Muyan into a spacious Chinese-style courtyard. Is this your home? Chen Ling's gaze swept over the rockeries, gardens, and nearby pavilions, asking in surprise, you have such a large property in Aurora City? Chen Ling was truly shocked. The last time he saw a courtyard of this scale was when he visited the Suzhou Gardens in his previous life. At that time, they even charged a 70 yuan entrance fee. Such a courtyard would already be expensive in the 7 districts, and in Aurora City. It was definitely the home of a wealthy family. He had thought that Chu Muyan, as a Twilight Society member with a hidden identity, would live in some dark, remote corner. He never expected him to openly live in such a luxurious mansion, which was more high profile than he had anticipated. Bai Yi followed from behind, arms crossed, smiling. Dr. Chu usually interacts with the upper echelons of Aurora City and various celebrities. Those people, in their pursuit of health and longevity, line up with piles of money, waiting for our Dr. Chu to work his magic. Otherwise, why would I always stick by this guy? This guy is our only member in Aurora City who has high status, significant assets, and can openly splurge. Enjoying these benefits from him is much better than hiding in some dark corner. Chu Muyan pushed up his glasses and explained unhurriedly, there are many people in the Twilight Society more capable than me. It's just that I've been lurking in the Aurora domain for a longer time and have accumulated some capital. After speaking, he seemed to recall something and looked at Chen Ling. After this incident, your original identity is completely unusable. Perhaps you should consider arranging a brand new identity for yourself in Aurora City. This shouldn't be difficult for you. Chapter 169. When the Embers Fade. Chen Ling nodded slightly, then asked in confusion. What is Senior Bai Yi's identity? Me? I don't need an identity. Bai Yi chuckled, as long as I don't want to be exposed. Who in Aurora City can catch me? Currently, a group of Twilight Society members has entered Aurora City, but most of them don't have overt identities. The information I can gather alone is limited. We need a larger intelligence network. Chu Muyan looked at Chen Ling and said seriously. Although you haven't been with the society for long, You are the only one who can quickly leverage an advantage in this area. Intelligence. Huh, Chen Ling mused. I understand. Chen Ling indeed needed a new identity. After all, he couldn't keep hiding in Chu Muyun's mansion. However, after his observations, continuing as an enforcement officer was no longer suitable. On one hand, starting over as a rookie in the enforcement system was too cumbersome. And if he were to secretly take out an enforcement officer and replace him, the risk would be too great. After all, he couldn't inherit the other person's memories. And Aurora City was full of powerful individuals. If any discrepancies were discovered, the consequences would be severe. On the other hand, there were too many high-ranking enforcement officers in Aurora City. With his current strength, disguising himself as a 2-mark or 3-mark enforcement officer was his limit. But this was only the lowest tier in Aurora City's enforcement system. Even if he successfully disguised himself, it would be difficult to access any crucial information. So, how to choose this new identity was a difficult problem Chen Ling had to face. Before you find a new identity, you can stay here with me. Chu Muyun pointed into the distance. That detached courtyard is yours. But there are no servants here, so you'll have to prepare your own meals every day. Okay. As Chen Ling was about to leave, something seemed to flash across the sky. He narrowed his eyes, a bright moon hanging high in the night sky. That is, Chen Ling asked, puzzled. It's Grey King, Chu Muyun replied calmly. Grey King is using the moonlight to establish contact with us. No, it doesn't seem to be us. Chen Ling looked back along the faint moonlight, only to see a wisp of moonlight, like white snow, spilling onto Bai Yi's front. Bai Yi gently looked up, his gaze meeting the bright moon through the brim of his baseball cap. And he sighed helplessly. It seems he's looking for me. Bai Yi left overnight. Chen Ling returned to his detached courtyard. Although it was just a detached courtyard, its area was equivalent to 3 times his original home in the 3rd district. He pushed open the door and entered the house, where all daily necessities were readily available. Chen Ling tidied up briefly, then lay back on the bed and quickly entered a dream. When he opened his eyes again, he was back on the familiar stage. The audience's gaze was fixed on him as always, like countless crimson stars in the darkness. After self-immolating on the train, Chen Ling had returned once before. But the situation was critical then, and he didn't have time for anything else. He quickly returned to the real world and hid himself to avoid being discovered. Only now did he have time to carefully examine the gains from this performance. He walked to the screen in the center of the stage and scrolled through them one by one. Open black lens bracket audience expectation value +5 close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket current expectation value, 83% close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket detected loss of actor connection. Performance interrupted close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket audience expectation value -50 close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket current expectation value, 33% close black lens bracket. After scrolling to the last message, Chen Ling's eyebrows raised slightly. After this death, he still had 33% expectation value, thanks to previously pushing it to 83%. This was the first time Chen Ling had raised his expectation value to this level, setting a new record. If Chen Ling remembered correctly, after the expectation value broke 80%, he should also have an extra random skill draw. Chen Ling reached out and tapped the treasure chest. Thump thump thump. Accompanied by rousing music, a table appeared out of thin air in the center of the stage. On the white paper in the middle of the tabletop, several lines of small text quickly emerged. Detected audience expectation value exceeding 80% for the first time. Unlocking achievement, rave reviews. You have gained an extra draw opportunity. After use, a character skill will be randomly drawn from all characters appearing in this play for you to learn. Chen Ling's gaze swept over these words. And it was indeed as he expected. But this random reward was still far inferior to the reward after completing the play. After all, this was a completely random character and skill. As more and more characters appeared in the play, the uncertainty of the draw would also be stronger. Moreover, this draw did not have the probability increase attached to the play, it was purely based on luck. The white paper on the table disappeared abruptly, replaced by a stack of playing cards on the tabletop. These playing cards were of different colors. Most were white and gray. Some were blue, and Chen Ling even saw a few purple cards. This indicated that some of the characters who appeared this time possessed higher-tier divine path skills. The next moment, these playing cards were simultaneously flipped face down, revealing uniform card backs, then overlapped at an astonishing speed, finally dispersing neatly across the tabletop. Chen Ling knew it was time to test his luck. He took a deep breath and randomly tapped a card in a corner. Seeing a flash of white light appear as the card flipped, Chen Ling's expression instantly stiffened. Skill: open black lens bracket, fist of justice, close black lens bracket. Affiliation: none. Character: Wen Xiaolin. This was not a divine path skill card, but an ordinary ability that couldn't even be considered a skill. In terms of rank, its level was basically on par with cooking and housekeeping mastery. The moment this card merged into Chen Ling's body, an introduction naturally appeared in his mind. Even if I am as humble as an ant, my fist of justice will still firmly strike down all darkness and injustice in the world, even if I turn to ashes. Chen Ling was a bit bewildered. He didn't know how this ridiculously weak skill could have such a domineering introduction. Nor did he know who this Wen Xiaolin was. In his impression, he had never seen or heard of this person. At this moment, Chen Ling realized another problem. Although this random reward had a high degree of uncertainty, it allowed him to draw skills from people he had never seen before. Whereas the selected reward after the play ended required knowing the names of the characters in the play to draw. It seemed that it wasn't the reward that was weak, but his luck that was too poor. Chen Ling shook his head. Although he only drew an ordinary skill, he wasn't too dejected, because he knew he still had one more chance. After the playing cards dispersed, a white paper once again appeared out of thin air on the table. Congratulations on completing the play. When the Embers Fade. Chapter 170, Xin Meng. Highest audience expectation for this play, 83%. You have obtained one designated lottery draw right. After use, you can designate a character from all the appearing characters in this play and randomly draw that character's ability. The probability of drawing rare skills is related to the overall audience expectation of this play. In the void before him, pages appeared out of thin air, quickly converging into a play script. Chen Ling flipped through a few pages and then casually placed it on a wooden shelf nearby. Perhaps because this play spanned a longer period, its thickness was twice that of the previous ones. But the content remained what Chen Ling had experienced, unchanged. Chen Ling picked up the pen, intending to write down the character he wanted to draw this time. But the tip of the pen hovered in midair, not falling for a long time. This time, he hesitated. According to Chen Ling's original plan, he intended to continue drawing Han Meng. After all, he had witnessed the power of Cardinal Sin Judgment with his own eyes. And replicating an entire judgment path was also Chen Ling's goal. But the question was, at this stage, did he truly urgently need this skill? If he were outside Aurora City, Chen Ling would undoubtedly draw Cardinal Sin Judgment. But now that he had entered Aurora City, dangers were everywhere. What he needed to do was no longer just combat, but more importantly, stealth and concealment. And for him, a Tier 2, the Tier 4 Judgment Court was already completely sufficient. Even if he drew Cardinal Sin Judgment, he wouldn't be able to exert much power with his current mental strength. Another point is that for the Judgment Path, the Tier 3 and Tier 4 skills between Killing Rhapsody and Judgment Court have already been drawn. So, as long as the play's expectation value is not low, he will most likely directly obtain the Tier 5 Cardinal Sin Judgment. But with his super high audience expectation this time, drawing any skill would have a significant probability boost. So using it here might be a bit of a waste. Perhaps, he could take a gamble? He had just drawn a common skill. His luck was already bad enough. Chen Ling didn't believe his luck would continue to be bad. This time, he would change the character to draw. After preparing himself mentally, Chen Ling put pen to paper and firmly wrote down a name. Bai Yi. The other cards on the table instantly disappeared, leaving only 10 cards spread out in a row. Among these 10 cards, there were 3 white, 4 blue, and 3 purple, representing 3 common skills and 7 divine path skills from Tier 1 to Tier 7. As the cards were flipped over and shuffled, they all ended up face down, quietly and neatly arranged in front of Chen Ling, waiting to be chosen. Chen Ling closed his eyes and randomly chose one based on his intuition. A purple light flashed by. Skill: Xin Meng. Affiliation: Thief God Path. Borrowing the Moon Path. 6th tier. Character: Bai Yi. The moment he saw this skill, Chen Ling's heart skipped a beat, followed by a surge of pleasant surprise. Putting aside everything else, getting a tier 6 skill from the thief god path immediately was definitely not a loss. Indeed, one's luck wouldn't stay bad forever. Chen Ling had gambled correctly this time. As the card disappeared into Chen Ling's body, his expression gradually became subtle. This skill should be the memory theft that left the deepest impression on Chen Ling. On the ship in the frozen sea, Bai Yi relied on this ability to manipulate the 3 enforcement officers. Moreover, memory theft seemed to be only a partial manifestation of Xin Meng. Its strangeness and power far exceeded Chen Ling's imagination. But the problem was, the consumption of this skill was equally terrifying. A tier 6 skill, no matter how weak, could not be skillfully used by a tier 2. He was very worried about how much power this skill could exert in his hands now. If he couldn't even cast it after exhausting all his mental strength, then it would be useless. I need to find an opportunity to try it. Chen Ling stood on the stage, deep in thought. Ellipsis. Ink-like night enveloped Aurora City, and a figure with hands in pockets walked along the deserted streets. During the day, this was one of Aurora City's most bustling commercial districts. Almost every shop entrance on both sides had a star-studded emblem representing their owners, one of the most powerful organizations in the city, the Constellation Commerce Association. And the figure's destination was the magnificent building at the end of the street, the headquarters of the Constellation Commerce Association. As he approached, the guards at the headquarters entrance soon noticed the mysterious man with a baseball cap wandering the streets late at night. A look of vigilance appeared on their faces, and one of them immediately asked, "Who are you? Don't you know this is?" "Get lost." The brim of the baseball cap was slightly lifted, and a pair of lazy eyes glanced over the guards. The next moment, these guards slightly trembled, their pupils visibly beginning to unfocus. They were like puppets who had lost their memories and purpose, standing blankly in place, allowing Bai Yi to pass by them. By the time they came to their senses, the figure had already vanished through the doorway like a ghost. Bai Yi strolled leisurely through the headquarters as if it were his own backyard. The Constellation Commerce Association's proud security system was completely useless in front of this thief saint. Bai Yi did not wander around. After entering the headquarters, he went straight in a certain direction, finally stopping in a secluded courtyard. His gaze fell on the square small windows on the ground. Below this thick ground was the dungeon of the Constellation Commerce Association. "The target is right here," Bai Yi murmured to himself. Ellipsis. At the same time, in the dungeon, as a low creaking sound echoed, several figures carrying kerosene lamps passed through the dim corridor and stopped in front of a silent cell. "Xianxia, your death is nigh," the leader spoke leisurely. "The soul fragmentation search evidence torture table has been cleared. President Yan has issued a death order. To make sure your soul scatters, please." The dim moonlight streamed through the skylight, scattering on the uneven ground of the dungeon. Xianxia, dressed in tattered clothes, sat in front of the moonlight, his eyes utterly calm. "You can't take me away." The man sneered. "What nonsense are you talking about? This is the dungeon of the Constellation Commerce Association, a forbidden area that even enforcement officers have no right to search. Do you think you still have a way out?" Xianxia's lips curled slightly. He looked at the moonlight above his head and spoke unhurriedly. "Since they have already sent me a message, they won't let you search me again. So this time, you can't take me away." The man's brow furrowed tighter and tighter. He was too lazy to waste words with Xianxia and directly ordered his subordinates to open the cell door, intending to go in and capture him. But just as his key inserted into the lock, a white light flashed inside the cell. The next moment, Xianxia's figure disappeared into thin air before everyone's eyes. How is this possible? The few people stood stunned. They immediately rushed into the cell and searched everywhere, but they could no longer see any trace of him. How did he do it? "Oh no, something's happened. Quick, sound the alarm." Just as everyone was in a chaotic mess, Xianxia had already passed through the ceiling and landed steadily on the ground. He looked at the Constellation Commerce Association courtyard, where alarms were blaring, and stood rooted to the spot. Not bad confidence. A voice came from the side. Under the moonlight, a figure wearing a baseball cap leaned lazily against the wall and slowly spoke. "You want to live, And we'll give you that chance. But whether you live or not depends on yourself. Risk your life, show us your worth. And perhaps, we will give you a new opportunity.